This is Vinnie Cilurzo.
And Taylor Lane from Russian River Brewing Company. And here's your craft beer and brewing tip of the week. As a microbiologist, once you change your environment, such as getting rid of oxygen entirely, or if you may not be able to and having far too much oxygen, that's when you really need to start looking at the potentials for contamination. If you are working in an environment that has excess oxygen in your package, that's when you really need to be focused on Acidobacter. These are the acetic acid producing bacteria that we've all had some homebrew from a friend that tastes like vinegar. These are the microorganisms you need to look out for. They love to live in the headspace of very highly oxidized beer. The way to prevent this is just use our tips and try and minimize oxygen. On the other hand, which we had to figure out when we started minimizing our oxygen, once you create a completely anaerobic environment, so there's no oxygen left, that's when you need to start worrying about microorganisms such as Megasphaera and Pectinatus. These are two microorganisms that will not live in an environment with oxygen, but thrive in completely oxygen-free environments. So this is something that we had to start testing for. We have PCR test kits that we use. If any other brewer is improving their processes and decreasing oxygen, you need to start worrying about these microorganisms.
At Russian River Brewing Company, it was only a couple years ago that we started canning. I guess you could say we were a little bit late to the can game. We've always been a bottle-focused brewery, and we still are. Something like 95% of our packaged beer is in bottles and a small amount to cans. Of course, that's not counting draft. And one of the reasons why I still like bottles better than cans is that you always will have a lower total package oxygen. There is almost no way for a can to have a lower TPO than a bottle. One of the reasons is that the bottle opening is such a smaller diameter compared to the opening of a can before the lid goes on and gets sealed. And so if you think about the foam pushing up and out of that small opening of the bottle, the oxygen is being driven to a much smaller area compared to a can with the wide surface area, and it's just so much harder to put a lid and seal it and cap on foam like we do with a bottle. We, for the last couple years, have been testing different pieces of canning equipment, and we've learned firsthand just how difficult it is to get a really low total package oxygen on a can compared to a bottle. With a bottle, you can rely on the beer to naturally foam up to cap on foam, or if you have a good system with a good jetter, you can jet in a small amount of water that makes it foam up, and just as it's foaming up and over, the crown put on the top of the bottle and crimped. And that will always yield a lower total package oxygen. Whereas with a can, the lid is being dropped on and it's parachuting down and it's capturing a lot more oxygen. And so you have to rely on an underlid gas system to be injecting CO2 as the lid is coming down. And this isn't as easy as it sounds to design or apply into your daily packaging, whether you're a home brewer or a professional brewer. And so it's just something to be aware of, that yes, cans, once they're sealed, there won't be any oxygen ingress through the crown top at the bottle where it seals, like what happens with bottles. But with cans, you do end up with more oxygen to start. And if you're not getting a really good underlid gas delivery of CO2, you might be doing more disservice to your beer than positive when it comes to really nice, fresh hop aromas and flavors and whatnot in your beer. And ultimately, oxidation is something none of us want in our beer, no matter what the style is.
And when it comes to the lab side of bottles versus cans, we see a lot more consistent TPO numbers during our bottle runs than we see during the canning runs, because there is so much variation in terms of how canning systems work compared to bottling systems.
If you are packaging in cans a non-foaming product, this is very, very difficult to do in keeping your TPO numbers low when you're filling a can. So that could be wine, cider, seltzer, tea, all of the non-foaming products that are getting pretty popular in the industry right now. And those products are very difficult to keep a low TPO on. And again, it's why having a really good underlid gas delivery system is so critical if you aren't packaging a foaming product like beer.
To learn more about oxygen in the brewing process,
Click the link below.